If you love emotional and surprising stories, don't forget to like the video to support the channel and help us spread more heart-touching stories. She had been reborn, brought back to the third year of her marriage with Pedro, the very same year his love would begin to vanish. That year, he met Julia, the woman he would destroy everything for. For Julia, he would turn his back on the Chan family, twist the arms of her parents, dismantle their company piece by piece, and drive them to ruin. Her parents committed suicide. Her brother and sister were left clinging to the edge of despair. And she, alone, stepped into the icy sea with their unborn child still inside her. But in this life, Isabel had no interest in revenge. No love, no war. All she wanted now was peace for the Chan family to live in quiet, unshattered dignity. The spring morning sunlight kissed her skin, warm and gentle, a feeling she had almost forgotten. Pedro lay next to her, fast asleep. His jawline was sharp, handsome, just as she remembered. The same jaw that had once smiled at her and later sentenced her family to ruin. Even when she had agreed to give everything up to sign the divorce papers, to hand over the title of Mrs. Law to Julia, he had kept going, crushing her family one by one, until he could be sure no shadow remained over his beloved Julia. When he loved someone, Pedro became impossibly tender. But when he didn't, he was colder than a stranger on the street. "You're awake?" he murmured, voice hoarse from sleep. He reached over, kissed her forehead with a softness that used to melt her. "Why didn't you call me? I'll make you breakfast." Even now, he was gentle. So careful. When they made love, he was never rough. He always said he didn't want to hurt her. But that same man, this careful, tender man, had once left her bleeding on the highway, her body scraped raw, her voice hoarse from pleading, her hands banging on the trunk of his car as he drove away. He hadn't even glanced back. "I'm not hungry," she said quietly. Pedro sat up, confused, and cupped her face in his hands. "What's wrong, my Isabel? Did I go too far last night?" His eyes held only affection, like they always had before they turned to ice. The memories had rushed in at dawn, flooding her with everything she had tried to forget. The innocence of young love, the lies they mistook for truth, the boy she thought she would love forever. But she couldn't afford love anymore. The price of loving Pedro had been far too high. She looked into his smiling eyes and said, clearly and calmly, "Let's get a divorce." Pedro had laughed on his way to work, brushing off her words like a joke. He assumed she was angry about something from the night before, teasing him with a dramatic line. Meanwhile, Isabel sat alone at the dining table, staring at the untouched breakfast she had made for him with care. A spread of dishes, fresh juice, warm bread, things she would have devoured before, especially if Pedro had made them. Cooking had been his strength, thanks to Mrs. Law, who had trained him from childhood to be the perfect partner. Their families had been close business allies and neighbors. Her mother and Mrs. Law had once been rivals, but pregnancy turned them into best friends. They had even joked about arranging their children's marriage, but ultimately, they'd agreed to let love decide. Pedro was the Law family's only son. During Mrs. Law's pregnancy, she was kidnapped. Isabel's mother had risked her own life to rescue her. Since then, Mrs. Law never stopped apologizing, but her mother had always laughed it off, saying, "I've got a big heart. Your nonsense just bounced right off it." That was the kind of woman her mother had been, bold, forgiving, and full of fire. Isabel, unlike Pedro, wasn't an only child. She had Lucas, her dependable older brother, and Roxana, her brilliant and fierce older sister. They had always spoiled her, protected her, gone to any lengths to keep her safe. But in her past life, even they couldn't escape the nightmare. Tragedy had consumed all of them. She clenched her fists under the table. This time, she would protect them, no matter what. When she returned to the Chan family home, it was nearly noon. Her father would be at the office, she thought, and only her mother would be home. But instead, she found Roxana should have been halfway across the world on a business trip waiting in the living room. "Isabel." Roxana jumped up and walked toward her. "Why are you here all of a sudden? Look at you, you've lost weight. And these dark circles? What happened? Was it that bastard Pedro? Don't be scared. Tell me everything. I'll go beat him up myself." Isabel couldn't hold back. She wrapped her arms around her sister and buried her face in Roxana's shoulder. "I missed you so much, sister." What she didn't say was the last time she had seen Roxana in her previous life had been in the morgue. Her body had been dumped there, bruised, battered, full of deep wounds. The most horrible Oni gaping hole in her chest. Her face had been so disfigured Isabel wouldn't have recognized her if not for the small birthmark they had shared since childhood. Roxana, always radiant, always fearless. Roxana, who had died without anyone to even claim her. It still haunted Isabel's every breath. No one deserved an ending like that. Especially not her. She would not let it happen again. She fought back tears and whispered, "Sister, in this life, I will protect you no matter what." Roxana blinked, slightly stunned, then touched Isabel's forehead. "Are you okay? Did you catch a fever or something?" But she was smiling, clearly touched. And then she did what Roxana always did, she posted it online. "My sweet baby sister just told me she'll protect me forever. Who else has a sister like that? Oh wait, you don't? Too bad." Minutes later, Isabel's phone lit up with notifications. One message stood out. A wolf avatar. The username, Law. The comment read, "What do you mean yours? She's mine. My Isabel. Pedro." Isabel stared at the screen, frozen. Roxana leaned over, saw the name, and snorted. "Look at that mutt. Afraid someone's taking his bone." Roxana had never liked Pedro. Not as a boy, not as a man. When they were kids, they'd even gotten into physical fights, wild shouting matches that only ended when Isabel burst into tears. Back then, whenever Roxana called him a dog, Isabel would argue with her, defend him, cry even. But now, those words no longer hurt. They meant nothing. Roxana's anger, her sharp tongue, they didn't sting. Because Isabel finally saw it too. She wasn't in love anymore. Not with the man who let her bleed in the street. And so, with quiet resolve, she looked her sister in the eye and told her the truth. She wanted to divorce Pedro. At first, Roxana stared at her like it was a joke. She asked twice, 3 times if Isabel was serious. She remembered how Isabel used to go on and on about Pedro when they were teenagers, how she'd stay up late just to talk about him, how every part of her youth had been painted with his name, her school days, their courtship, their wedding, every smile, every heartbreak. And now to give that all up? To let it go without even a fight? Roxana was stunned. "Are you serious?" she finally whispered. Isabel didn't flinch. Her eyes didn't waver. That was answer enough. Roxana reached out and gently stroked her cheek. "All right. I don't know what happened between you two, and I won't ask. But if this is what you want, then I'm with you. I'll stand by you, Isabel. No matter what." Later that day, Isabel found out her parents were abroad, traveling together while Lucas and Roxana held down the company. After their conversation, Roxana had gone into her room and locked the door, making a long call overseas. Isabel didn't know what was said, but when Roxana emerged, her face was lighter, calmer.
"I told them," she said.
"They know everything. They're not angry. Mom and Dad are going to talk to Pedro's parents, and then we'll handle the divorce. But Mom said one thing, that we're not children anymore. That a decision made must be honored. No turning back." And Isabel understood. No matter how sudden, no matter how reckless her choice seemed to others, her family would never abandon her. They would fight for her. They would carry her burden if needed. In her past life, she had failed them all. Failed by loving the wrong man. Failed by putting Pedro above those who loved her unconditionally. But not this time. This time, she would make things right. She would protect them the way they had once tried to protect her. Her love for Pedro had drowned long ago in a sea of pain, betrayal, and crimson regret. That Isabel, the one who loved Pedro blindly, was gone. Now, there was only this Isabel, the one who loved her family and herself, and nothing more. When she called Pedro to say she'd be staying at her parents' house for a while, he protested immediately. But then, after what must have been a heated phone call with his own parents, he called her back. This time, his voice shook. "Isabel, listen to me. Don't make any decisions when you're upset, okay? You want to stay with your parents?
Fine.
Stay as long as you want. Take anything you need. Just don't rush into anything.
Please.
Let's talk. I don't know what I did, but at least give me a chance to explain. Don't just cut me off like this. Are you listening? You don't have to say anything. Just stay on the line. Today I'll finish all my work early and then we'll go out, just us, have some fun like we used to. Okay. Isabel sat in silence, phone pressed to her ear. His voice kept pouring through, soft, pleading, familiar. But it felt far away, like listening through water. Because all she could hear was her own voice from a lifetime ago begging him in the exact same way. She had called and called 100 times maybe, each time hoping, praying he would answer. When he finally did, his tone had been cold.
What do you want? He snapped. She hadn't eaten that day.
Hadn't drunk water. Her throat was dry, cracked. But she still tried to speak, forced her voice to be calm, respectful, desperate. Pedro, my father's company, it's in trouble. You know about it, don't you? There was a pause. And then came the words that broke her. I know. It was me. Isabel had suspected, but hearing it from him shattered her. She collapsed on the floor, tears streaming, heart splintering.
Why?
Why would you do that? My family never hurt you. They watched you grow up. Why would you? Enough, he interrupted. If you're going to talk about that, I'm hanging up. Then he turned away from the phone and whispered something too soft for her to miss. She'll go back to sleep. It's nobody. Someone unimportant. The tenderness in his voice, it wasn't for her. It was for Julia. Everything became clear in that moment. Was it because someone in my family hurt Julia? I can explain. They were just trying to protect me. It wasn't personal. If you want revenge, take it out on me. I'll accept anything. Just please don't destroy my dad's company. Please, Pedro. I've never asked you for anything. We grew up together. Just this once, let me beg you. Please. The line went silent. Then came the cold, heartless tone of a disconnected call. She never forgot that moment. Not the pain. Not the blood. Because soon after, her mother had texted her one last time, saying everything would be fine, that she should listen to her siblings, that she'd always be their little princess, that she deserved a peaceful life, free from burdens. But something felt off. So Isabel went home that night. The Chan house was lit up like always. But the living room was empty. No mom watching dramas, no dad with the news on. No gentle bickering. No warmth. She climbed the stairs. The door to their bedroom was open. The smell hit her first. Blood has a scent. Sharp. Metallic. Endless. Until that moment, Isabel had never known that a human body could bleed so much. Her parents had shielded her from everything. From pain, from fear, from reality. And so she had been naive. Stupid. Too stupid to see the signs. There was so much blood. Too much. It coated the tiles, crept up the walls, soaked into the rugs. Her parents lay on the bathroom floor, hand in hand, eyes closed. They had done it together. They had decided that if they could not save the family name, at least they could protect her innocence. Isabel stood there, frozen, while people moved around her, gathering what was left. Voices blurred. Faces blurred. She was underwater again. And when she came back to herself, the phone was still pressed to her ear. Pedro was still talking. An hour had passed. She could still hear the buzz of his voice, still smooth, still coaxing. But it meant nothing now. She let the phone slip from her hand. It hit the floor and cracked, like her heart had once done. After that, she stayed home for a week. Roxana never left her side. She didn't go to the company, didn't take a single call. On the 8th day, her parents returned. Her real ones alive, well. Lucas was with them. As soon as she walked through the door, her mother wrapped her in a warm, tearful hug. My precious girl, she whispered, voice thick with love, just having you back is enough. You're afraid of me. His voice was low, almost a whisper, but it carried across the small space like thunder. Isabel didn't respond. She didn't nod. She didn't deny it. She just looked down at her tea, steam curling gently toward her face, trying to calm the tremble in her chest. Pedro stood still for a long moment, his breath uneven, his shoulders stiff. Then, slowly, he sat down across from her. For a man who once ruled boardrooms and courtrooms with a glance, he now seemed like a boy who had lost something he couldn't name. Since when have you been afraid of me? He asked again, softer this time. Isabel looked up. His eyes were bloodshot. His tie was crooked. He looked nothing like the Pedro she used to love or the Pedro who destroyed her family. He looked like someone caught in a storm, unsure which way the wind was blowing. Since the morning you told me I should have died with the Chan family, she said calmly. No accusation. No drama. Just truth. It hit him like a slap. He didn't flinch, but she saw the pain flash in his eyes. He opened his mouth, closed it again, like he didn't know what to say. He probably didn't. In her past life, he hadn't needed to explain anything. She was the one begging, the one crawling, the one waiting for mercy. But not this time. Pedro, she continued, I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to argue about what happened. I've come to talk about the divorce. He swallowed.
Hard.
Can't we just talk first?
Not about that.
Just about us? Isabel took a sip of tea. There is no us anymore. Don't say that, he said quickly, leaning forward. I know I was wrong. I know I hurt you. But people change. I've changed. You changed, she agreed. Just not in the way you think. You changed into someone who could step over the bodies of the people who raised you like their own son. That wasn't what I wanted, he said, desperate now. I thought your family hated Julia. I thought they'd done something to her. She was hurting. So you took revenge, Isabel finished. Even though I begged you not to. Even when I told you we were innocent. Pedro was silent. The air between them grew heavier, thicker. Outside the window, the world kept moving. People laughed, walked, carried shopping bags, chased toddlers. But in here, the past stood still, refusing to let go. I just wanted to protect her, he said at last, his voice hoarse. Even if it meant destroying everything else? She asked. Even if it meant destroying me? His eyes finally met hers, and she saw the cracks in his armor. I thought I was doing the right thing, he said. I thought you were strong. That you'd bounce back. That your family would be fine. We weren't fine, Isabel said. We shattered. My parents died because of you. My brother nearly lost everything. My sister, she stopped. No, she wouldn't let herself spiral into those images again. Not here.
Not now.
I know, Pedro whispered. I know what I did. I live with it every day. Then let me go, she said. Sign the divorce papers. End this. Don't turn it into another war. I can't, he admitted, voice cracking. Because I still love you. For a moment, Isabel couldn't breathe. She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the briefest second, she saw the boy she once loved, the one who used to sneak her dumplings during lunch breaks, the one who waited in the rain just to walk her home. But that boy had grown up and become someone else. And so had she. Love isn't supposed to destroy everything in its path, she said. If it does, it's not love. It's possession. Pedro dropped his gaze. Then what am I supposed to do? Let me go, she said again. Let both of us go. A long silence followed. Then Pedro stood up slowly, straightening his crumpled suit. I'll talk to my parents, he said quietly. You'll have the papers soon. Isabel gave a small nod. He didn't say goodbye. He just walked out of the bakery, leaving a trail of smoke and silence behind him. She watched him disappear into the crowd, blending in like any other stranger. Only after he was gone did she allow herself to take a deep breath. Her hands were still shaking. She reached into her bag, pulled out a handkerchief, and pressed it to her eyes. It was over. The last thread had snapped. Pedro had walked away. And this time, she hadn't chased after him. Doctor, how is she? Roxana's voice trembled despite her efforts to stay composed. The doctor glanced at the chart, then looked up at Lucas and Roxana with furrowed brows. Has the patient recently experienced any major physical trauma? Something like a car chase or a serious vehicular accident? Lucas and Roxana exchanged a look, confused, surprised. No, Roxana said slowly. Not that we know of. Isabel hasn't gone through anything like that recently. The doctor tapped his pen against the folder and sighed. Well, the scan shows signs of acute neurological stress, the kind we usually see in trauma survivors. Her brain waves are exhibiting intense fluctuations like someone who's been reliving a highly distressing memory over and over again. The body's reacting as if it already experienced a major impact. Even though there's no visible injury, the shock response is undeniable. Lucas's expression darkened. What does that mean for her now? She needs rest, emotional peace, and she shouldn't be agitated. This kind of stress builds up slowly, and then it all bursts. The collapse wasn't just physical. Her body gave out because her mind has been carrying too much for too long. Roxana stared at the pale, unconscious figure of her sister lying on the hospital bed. Isabel's face looked serene, but to Roxana, it felt more like a masked one she recognized all too well. She had seen that kind of silence before in people who had chosen to endure rather than fight, in those who were too exhausted to cry anymore. Isabel didn't wake up that day, nor the next. It wasn't until 3 days later, just as the early morning sun was slipping through the hospital blinds, that her fingers twitched. A soft groan left her lips. Roxana, who had been dozing in the chair, instantly sat upright. "Isabel," she whispered. Isabel opened her eyes slowly, blinking at the unfamiliar ceiling, then at the 4-drip attached to her wrist. "Where am I?" "Hospital," Roxana said gently. "You fainted. Do you remember?" Isabel nodded weakly. Her gaze was unfocused. "How long have I been here?" 3 days. Roxana took her hand. "You scared the hell out of us." Isabel turned her head away. "I'm sorry." "Don't apologize," Roxana said firmly. "Just talk to me. What happened that day? After Pedro grabbed you, what pushed you over the edge?" Isabel closed her eyes, letting the silence stretch. The smell of antiseptic lingered in the air. The ticking of the wall clock seemed louder than it should have been. Then she spoke. "It wasn't just him. It was Julia. She's the same." Roxana stiffened. "Same how? Same face. Same voice. Same eyes," Isabel whispered. She was there again. The same place, the same uniform. "I brought him to her. This time on purpose." "What do you mean, again?" Roxana asked cautiously. Isabel didn't answer. She stared at the ceiling like it was going to collapse and reveal the stars. Her voice came low, hollow. "There was a time I thought if I gave him, everything would love me. I gave up my pride, my family, even begged the woman he loved to leave him. Offered her money. 50 million. You remember?" Roxana's lips parted in disbelief. "You offered Julia money to leave Pedro?" "She rejected it. She said she didn't need money, only love. And Pedro looked at me like I was something dirty, like I had tried to stain something pure. He said I had no right to interfere with love." Isabel let out a short, humorless laugh. "Can you imagine? After everything he did to my family, he called her innocent and me filthy." Roxana's grip on her hand tightened. "He doesn't get to say that. He doesn't get to pretend he was ever the victim." Isabel smiled fondly. "I know. That's why I took him there this time. So he could see her again. I wanted to end this cycle cleanly. If they're fated, let them meet. Let them be together. But I have to step off the stage. That life fight's done." Roxana said nothing. She simply leaned forward and hugged her tightly. "We're here now. Whatever happened before, you're not alone this time. Don't carry it all by yourself." Isabel allowed herself to rest in her sister's embrace. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. There was only stillness, like the eye of a storm that had finally passed. Later that day, Lucas and their parents came to visit. Her mother fussed over her, fluffing pillows and adjusting her blanket, while Lucas set a small bouquet on the table. Their father said little, but the concern in his eyes said everything. When they left, Roxana lingered behind. "He came to the hospital," she said quietly. "Pedro. 2 nights in a row. He didn't ask to see you. He just sat outside. Said he didn't want to disturb you. He didn't look well. But I didn't let him in." Isabel looked out the window. The sky was the color of ashes. "That's good. I don't want to see him. He didn't ask to talk. He just left something for you." Roxana handed over a sealed envelope. Isabel hesitated, then took it. Her hands were still shaky. She tore it open slowly. Inside was a photo creased at the corners, faded from age. It was of them, back when they were young. She in her school uniform, hair tied in ribbons. He, a lanky teenager with awkward shoulders and a shy grin. Written on the back in familiar handwriting, "You were the best part of my youth." Isabel stared at the photo for a long time. Then she folded it and placed it back inside the envelope. "I was. But that part of my life is over." And this time, she meant it. From above the clouds, everything looked so small, rivers like threads of silver, buildings like scattered Lego pieces, and people like invisible dust. Isabel leaned her head against the window and closed her eyes. The cabin hummed quietly, steady and distant. She thought about everything she was leaving behind: the hospital bed, the trembling hands, the dreams that turned into screams. The woman who had once chased love to the ends of the earth had finally stopped running. That life was over. And somewhere in the blue stretching endlessly outside the plane, she whispered goodbye. Goodbye to the Isabel who wept in Pedro's arms. Goodbye to the girl who once measured her worth in someone else's gaze. At Wharton, the pace of life was dizzying. From the moment she stepped onto campus, Isabel felt like she had been dropped into another world, one where no one knew her story, where her name had no baggage, no scandal, no legacy. Just Isabel Chan, another first-year finance student with sharp eyes and quiet grace. She made friends quickly. People were drawn to her calm confidence, her grounded sense of purpose. What they didn't know was that every smile she wore was one she had earned. Through fire, through ash. She studied hard, worked late in the library, sat through seminars with her notes color-coded and immaculate. The professors noticed. Some said she reminded them of top students from years ago, sharp, silent, and relentless. Isabel didn't mind. She wasn't there to impress. She was there to rebuild. To prove to herself that she could stand again, not because someone caught her, but because she learned how to walk alone. Fall passed like a blur of golden leaves and midterms. Winter crept in with snowflakes dancing over the riverbank outside her dorm. She missed home, sometimes Mom's warm hands, Roxana's teasing voice, Lucas's quiet protectiveness. But her phone calls home were always cheerful. She never let them hear the nights when she woke up shaking, soaked in sweat, visions of red flooding her mind. Instead, she brewed flower tea like Roxana taught her, wrote long journal entries, and repeated the words her mother once said: "Wherever you go, my heart goes with you." One afternoon, as she was leaving a lecture, she ran into someone literally. Books scattered across the hallway floor. "Sorry," the man said quickly, bending down to help her. Isabel looked up and froze. He had Pedro's eyes. Not in color or shape, but in weight. The same intensity. But where Pedro's gaze once carried possession and fire, this one was steady, warm. "Are you all right?" he asked. She blinked, then nodded. "Yes, sorry. I wasn't looking." They both reached for the same book, and their hands brushed. The man smiled. "Finance major?" "Yeah," she replied. "Second semester." "Same," he said. "I'm Leo." She shook his hand. "Isabel." They didn't talk long. Just a short, polite exchange. But later that night, Isabel found herself thinking about the way he had looked at her. Not with hunger. Not with guilt. Just interest. Like she was a person. Not a project. Not a pawn. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to wonder what it would feel like to be liked, not for her family name, not for her beauty, not as a trophy or a tool, but simply for being herself. She shook the thought away. It was too soon. Too fragile. But still she didn't forget his name. As spring approached, she began volunteering at the school's mental health center, assisting with outreach events, listening to others share stories that mirrored echoes of her own. Sometimes, she sat in the back of therapy sessions just to observe. To learn. She didn't say it out loud, but part of her wanted to understand what had broken inside her. And how she had survived. She started writing essays not for class, but for herself. About trauma. About healing. About how some wounds never close but still stop bleeding. One day, her therapist, an older woman with wise eyes and a gentle voice, asked, "What is it that you're most afraid of now?" Isabel took a long pause. "Forgetting," she said finally. "Forgetting how far I've come. Forgetting who I used to be. And who I never want to become again." The therapist nodded. "Then don't forget. Remember everything. Just don't let it chain you." That night, Isabel took out a piece of paper and wrote a letter she would never send. Dear Pedro, thank you for loving me in your own way, and for breaking me so I could become who I am now. I don't forgive you, but I've stopped hating you. That's enough. She folded it, tucked it into a notebook, and went to sleep without crying. That summer, Isabel returned to her hometown briefly. Just for a few days. Her family threw a small celebration, nothing grand, just laughter, homemade food, and a cake with "Welcome back, Wharton girl," written in messy frosting. Mom cried again. Dad tried not to. Roxana insisted on taking dozens of photos. Lucas grilled the meat like it was a corporate negotiation. Isabel looked around the table and thought, this is what matters. Not love. Not revenge. Not proving anything to anyone.
Just this.
Just them. Her people. Her peace. That night, standing by her bedroom window with a cup of warm flower tea in hand, she looked up at the moon. I'm not coming back broken this time, she whispered. And I won't run anymore. The wind rustled the leaves gently outside. Somewhere far away, a story had ended. But here, in this moment, a new one was just beginning. I adjusted Roxana's hat. She gave me a wink and saluted playfully. CEO, Isabel, take care of the empire while your sister chases sunsets. I chuckled, brushing invisible dust from her shoulders. Don't forget to send postcards from wherever you run off to. Deal, she grinned. Then her expression softened. And don't work too hard. The company's still a business, not your redemption. I looked at her and nodded slowly. In my past life, I had carried guilt like chains. But this time, I had no interest in martyrdom. I simply wanted to protect what my family had built with care, not obsession. When Roxana left that morning, she was radiant. Sunglasses on, backpack ready, humming a tune only she knew. She had survived.
She had lived.
That was enough to make everything worth it. And just like that, I stepped into the world that used to crush me. Meetings, documents, strategy plans. The company was not the same as it had been 4 years ago. Lucas had done an outstanding job restructuring and preparing the transition. The team respected him, but they looked at me with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. To them, I was the quiet little sister who had disappeared after her divorce. But I didn't explain. I didn't prove anything. I simply worked hard, precisely, with vision. Gradually, the murmurs faded. They started calling me by name. Stop comparing me to Lucas. One morning, I was reviewing a proposal when a team member brought in a sealed envelope. It's from Law Corp, he said carefully. I felt my spine stiffen, but I remained calm. Thank you, I said, opening it after he left. Inside was a formal invitation. Law Corp's annual charity gala. No handwritten note. Just a standard letter with gilded edges and perfect wording. I stared at it for a long moment. Pedro had not contacted me in years. And yet, this felt deliberate. Calculated. I placed the envelope in a drawer and said nothing. That night, I called Roxana. She was in Santorini, sipping wine and watching the sun melt into the sea. Are you going to the gala? She asked before I could say anything. You already know? Lucas told me. He was invited too. Are you going? No way, she laughed. I've had enough ballrooms and fake champagne to last a lifetime. What about me? I asked almost rhetorically. She went silent for a beat. That depends. Do you want closure or trouble? I didn't answer. She added softly, just don't let ghosts steal your peace. I ended the call and stared at the stars outside my window. Closure. Or trouble. Was there even a difference anymore? A few days later, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, adjusting the hem of a simple black gown. Sleek, clean lines.
No jewelry. No embellishments.
I wasn't there to dazzle. I was there to confront whatever still lingered. The gala was held at a grand hotel downtown. Chandeliers glimmered, and the room buzzed with polished voices. I moved through the crowd with practiced ease. Most people recognized me now not as Pedro's ex-wife, but as the new force behind the Chan revival. After an hour of polite conversations and glass clinks, I saw him. Pedro. Sitting in a corner booth, away from the spotlight. In a black tailored suit, wheelchair parked neatly at his side, hands resting calmly on his lap. He looked up as if he had sensed me long before I spotted him. Our eyes met. He didn't smile. Neither did I.
He walked over slowly.
Mr. Law, I said. Miss Chan, he replied. It was formal, cold, but beneath the surface, something cracked. Thank you for the invitation, I said. Was that your idea? Yes, he admitted. I wanted to see for myself. See what? I asked. That I survived? He held my gaze. That you became magnificent. I didn't answer. He looked older more than the 4 years that had passed. His jawline still sharp, but the fire in his eyes was dimmer. Calmer. Or maybe buried. How's your recovery? I asked finally. Manageable, he said. Some days are harder than others. You're not the only one who's had hard days, I said flatly. I know. There was a pause. The air between us wasn't hostile. Just waited. I'm not here to apologize, he said. I know it's too late for that. I just wanted you to see that you weren't the only one who remembered. My breath caught. I looked at him sharply. So it's true. It started a year after the accident, he confessed. Dreams, flashes, timelines that didn't match. Then full memories. What about Julia? I asked quietly. She remembered too, he said. At first. Then she changed. Became unstable. I tried to help her, but she hated me. Said I had betrayed our destiny. I admitted her to a clinic when she tried to hurt herself.
Or me.
I don't know. I looked away. So you purged LawCorp again?
Yes.
But this time for the right reasons. You hurt her. I know. Another long silence. He shifted slightly. Isabel, I don't expect you to care. But I needed to say it. I remember everything. And I would rather die like this than become that man again. I stared at him. For once, he looked entirely human. Broken, perhaps, but not hollow. Not cruel. Then stay who you are now, I said. That's all I want. I turned and walked away before he could say anything else. And this time, I didn't look back. The night Pedro died, fireworks painted the sky with bursts of colored gold, violet, like the world was celebrating something grand. The irony wasn't lost on me. While everyone raised their glasses to a new year, I sat by the window with a quiet toast of my own, not to the man who once broke me, but to the final closing of a chapter that had haunted me through 2 lifetimes. I whispered his name just once into the night. Not with love. Not with hate. Just acceptance. We'll never see each other again, I said, my voice steady, like a verdict passed by fate. It felt definitive, like a vow etched across my bones. After Pedro's death, the world around me didn't change much. The sky didn't darken. The stock market didn't crash. The headlines called him a legend, a ruthless genius, a man who built and ruled, then vanished with mystery. They didn't know the man who once whispered to a girl that she was his world, then tore hers apart piece by piece. They didn't know the Pedro whose silence could bruise worse than fists. They didn't know the 1,000 little deaths he made me live through before the real one ever came. But I did. And yet, even I couldn't bring myself to hate him anymore. Because in the end, he was just a boy who carried too much power and too little love. And I was just the girl who thought she could save him. Life moved on. It always does. The Chan family became a name that resonated globally. Our business was steady, our leadership stronger than ever. Lucas finally found someone he loved, an environmental lawyer with sharp wit and kind eyes. Roxana, somewhere in Morocco, sent postcards that always arrived with sand stuck between the pages. Mom's health stabilized. Dad spent mornings tending his roses and evenings listening to classical music with her by the window. And me? I lived. Not survived, lived. I read again. Traveled alone. I learned Italian just because I wanted to understand opera lyrics. I laughed freely, not because someone earned it, but because I wanted to. And I wrote. For myself. For no one. One spring, I stood beneath cherry blossoms in Kyoto, watching petals fall like snow. I remembered once thinking that pain never left you. But maybe it does, just not all at once. Maybe it leaves one petal at a time. I still dreamed of him sometimes. Not the man he was, but the boy. The one who waited outside her school with her favorite milk tea. The one who looked at her like she was the only light in a dark room. And sometimes I wondered if Pedro had ever truly been happy. If he had known what peace felt like, even for a second. But I didn't dwell on it. The dead should be remembered, not clung to. On what would have been his 40th birthday, I lit a single white candle. Not in mourning. Just acknowledgement. I whispered one last time. Be free now. Let it end here. And that night, for the first time since his death, I slept without dreams. 5 years later, on a quiet autumn afternoon, I was invited to give a lecture at Wharton. As I stood before a crowd of students, sharing my story not of pain, but of resilience, I realized I had done something extraordinary. I had rewritten my ending. A student raised his hand and asked, "What advice would you give to someone who's gone through something they feel they'll never overcome?" I smiled, the answer coming easier than I expected. Survival isn't about forgetting, I said. It's about remembering without reliving. Pain doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. But it doesn't get to define you forever. Only you can do that. And as I stepped down from the podium, I felt something lift inside me. Something old and heavy. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe grief. Maybe just the echo of a past life finally fading. Whatever it was, it no longer belonged to me. On the flight home, I looked out the window at the stars scattered across the night sky. I thought about how far I had come, how far I still wanted to go. There were no more ghosts in my reflection.
Just me.
Isabel Chan.
Alive. Whole. Free.
If you love emotional and surprising stories, don't forget to like the video to support the channel and help us spread more heart-touching stories.